Hello and thanks for joining us here for KVAL News at 9. I'm John Mayer.
And I'm Brianna Chavez.
Tsunami alerts leaving folks on edge along the west coast, especially over in Hawaii, bringing mass evacuations to the island state. Some coastal flooding. This right here, a live look outside over Hawaii here at this hour.
Now, the cause of the tsunami alert, one of the largest earthquakes on record, way out in the Pacific, just off the coast of eastern Russia. Jonathan Bigliotti reporting from Malibu, California.
In Honolulu, a scramble to seek higher ground. Waves crashed on empty beaches as warnings echoed.
The roads are full, people trying to move. We ask you to stay calm, cooperate, and get to high ground.
We decided to go to elevated ground, and it's kind of just where it's taken us so far. We've passed a couple other gas stations that you can't even get in them. Tsunami
warnings and alerts were issued from Hawaii to the entire west coast of the U.S. after an 8.8 magnitude earthquake hit off Russia. Officials warned waves could reach up to 10 feet, prompting boats in the Honolulu area to head out to sea. After night fell, there was isolated flooding and areas where the water had receded.
So far, we have not seen a wave of consequence, which is great relief to us.
Hours earlier, a tsunami more than a foot high was detected in over a dozen parts of Japan. Officials warned bigger waves are possible. Some people sought safety on the tops of buildings. The massive earthquake that triggered the waves shook furniture in far eastern Russia. Emergency responders rushed to a damaged kindergarten after the front of the building collapsed. No children were reportedly inside. Jared Hill, CBS News.
Now, this was certainly the largest recorded earthquake that we've seen across the globe in more than a decade. The focus here locally in Oregon on the potential tsunami waves, though in the event of an earthquake close at home, it's a good time to remember that Shake Alert early warning system. As we reported last year, Shake Alert saw a pretty big update, improving accuracy and lead time on any earthquake alerts here in our region. That update incorporating GPS technology, giving folks a few extra seconds of warning to drop for cover, move to a safe zone. Ultimately, warning times do vary depending on your distance from an earthquake. Close to the epicenter is actually a blind zone where no warning even possible. But the further from the epicenter you get, the more warning you would receive. It's a message that would be pushed through an Amber Alert, which would also warn of other earthquake consequences, including tsunamis like we saw here. Now, we spoke with one of the lead researchers that was working on Shake Alert to find out why this update was so important to the system.
The reason that's a big deal is because traditional seismic stations have a hard time with really big earthquakes. And so if an earthquake gets to about magnitude 8, and definitely if it gets to magnitude 9, it becomes really challenging for earthquake early warning systems that rely on traditional seismic stations to do a good job.
Again, that update went into place last year. We've got extensive coverage on the Shake Alert system that first went into service back in 2021. It's all available on our website, and you can find that all out over at kval.com. Meanwhile, we have had our reporter Zach Brule out there on the coast all morning long, keeping tabs on how folks have been reacting to the ongoing Tsunami Advisory over in Florence. And we've certainly seen a pretty quiet scene out there this morning, right, Zach?
Yeah, John, quiet is kind of the name of the game out here today as we get started in Florence. Now, we did meet some people and seen some people start to sort of wake up here along the Oregon coast and go about business as usual, walking their dogs along the beach, walking their dogs all through Old Town. Really, things seem like business as usual. Now, you can see as LSB pans over to the coastline here, the highest the water did get yesterday is marked by that darker haze along the coast there. Now, that's still a couple feet away from the edge of where the water has risen here in Florence in the past. So nothing over the top here in the area. Now, there are still reasons to be cautious. Currents could still be shifting. Riptides could be out in the ocean if you're heading out to fish or surf or any kind of hanging out in the ocean. It's really a good idea to maybe look at the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, the National Tsunami Warning Center, for different types of advice about what you should or maybe shouldn't do at this point. We spoke with some folks visiting the Florence area from Alaska. They, for one, said they weren't too worried about any of this activity yesterday because they live in Alaska. They've been through this sort of thing before. But they did cancel their deep-sea fishing adventure that they had scheduled for later today because being out on a boat with these uncertain currents, uncertain tides, not necessarily the safest thing to do. The Oregon Department of Emergency Management says while this advisory is in effect, doing exactly what I'm doing right now, standing this close to the shoreline, not necessarily what they would advise, albeit we're taking a calculated risk here because low tide is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and we're currently sitting at, about 10% of the full tide here along the Siuslaw River inlet from the ocean. So not too much risk with us, but if you're thinking about spending any time out on the coast, they do say stay away from the ocean until that advisory is lifted, because for 20-ish hours, 20 plus hours, what they're saying on social media, these waves could still roll in unexpectedly. Albeit they're not expecting major waves. Everything was projected to be between 1 foot and 2 feet. Never saw anything quite that large even in this area here. And so you're not expecting major shifts, but still, if you're planning on spending any time at the beach today or in the coming days, take a peek at the Oregon Department of Emergency Management or right here on KVAL for updates about what exactly is being advised from safety officials. Because they'd say at this point, stay away from the beach. But then again, like I said, calculated risks that LSB and I are taking out here to make sure that we can get the best coverage to you as possible. John, though, everything here in Florence is pretty much business as usual here on this Wednesday.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we like to see here. Again, we were never under a tsunami warning. This wasn't an evacuation scenario, but still, those beach hazards, something to keep in mind. We did see about 1.5 feet over on the coast there towards Port Orford, so still some spots where that water did come in. You bring up a good point there, being at an inlet. A lot of times we're just talking about the ocean as the major concern, but those inlets, you can also see some issues there as well, right, Zach?
Yeah, they're impacted just the same. They're connected to that ocean. So if the ocean's rising, these inlets are rising. So, for example, we were up earlier near Moe's here in Florence, where there's that boat dock right next to it. We're checking the boats because when the big waves are expected, like they said in Honolulu, you go out to sea with your boats to avoid that damage. No one did that here that we noticed. So we were looking for damage on those boats along the harbor. Nothing of the sort. So it just goes to show again how minimally impactful the waves that did reach the Oregon coast were. But again, caution is the name of the game when this sort of thing comes, because you just never know when it goes from not so bad to something worse, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So good tips right there. And of course, that tsunami advisory is still in place. So stay safe out there, folks. Now, over in Coos Bay, our reporter Dan Kelly just yesterday spoke with the emergency manager for Coos County regarding the tsunami alerts over on the coast. The emergency manager is saying best to always stay away from those low-lying areas. And that's really what we've been talking about, staying away from beach hazards, things of that nature. U.S. Coast Guard, of course, were preparing, making sure that they were ready in case any action needed to be taken. Now, last time a damaging tsunami hit Oregon. That was all the way back in 2011 after a magnitude 9+ earthquake struck near Japan. You'll remember that was the earthquake that led to the Fukushima nuclear disaster. According to the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, that tsunami here closer to home, it did cause severe damage, actually contributing to the deaths of 4 people over on the Oregon coast. Now, for those that are still in the advisory area, again, a reminder, it's the entirety of the Oregon coast still looking at that advisory. You want to remember, tsunamis, they are absolutely still a possibility. Those stronger waves, that sort of rip current that can really catch you, as well as some potential debris hazards over on the beaches as well. That is still with us here, moving forward, potentially for hours still left to come. The first wave, not necessarily the worst, but yeah, we still have a long ways left to go, and still we will continue to keep you updated on those advisories all morning long. Make sure that you know exactly what you'll need to know before you head out the door here throughout the rest of the day right here on KVAL. But I also want to bring you some truly stunning video. This right here, some panicked sea lions that were diving into the sea as that earthquake hit the island of Antisfarov, just off the shores of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula late yesterday afternoon. Island known as a natural habitat for stellar sea lions, those large threatened species of sea lion. Powerful quake hitting the island. The rocks began falling. Sea lions essentially just ducking for cover there into the sea below. Video film from a ship by tourists at a nature day trip there. Powerful magnitude 8.8 earthquake. Again, the largest that we have seen since 2011. Really incredible stuff right there. And again, we are still seeing the impacts, Brianna. The tsunami advisories still continue. We have seen some updates, thankfully. Some areas have been downgraded.
Yeah. To put it in perspective, we really have seen the changes across that coastline. I mean, from all the way in British Columbia down into Southern California, even into the Tijuana Peninsula across in Baja California specifically, and really starting to see a little bit of the shift. Now those advisories canceled for Southern California, so slowly starting to see that relief really across the board. But again, to give you a little bit more so perspective at home and how we're seeing those impacts of the earthquake, really the tsunami alert efforts happening again. That earthquake just off the peninsula of Russia, but really starting to travel a lot of those waves down into the entire coastline that we're seeing. Now, you can see a little bit of a sliver of that orange. Those are the tsunami advisories being issued. Now, as we take a little bit more of a closer look into Northern California, kind of playing around with the watches and advisories up and down that coastline. A little bit closer at the Oregon coast, well, yeah, we're definitely seeing those impacts, even over to where our very own Zach Brule is out there this morning. So yes, going to continue to track out that push for that. As we do remain in a tsunami advisory, a couple things to keep in mind. Make sure that you have any evacuation plans in place. Yes, we're starting to see a little bit more so of a break from the threat, but nonetheless, still important to know where those tsunami zones are, depending on where you live along the coastline. Head to higher ground, and of course, going to continue to track out the tsunami advisory still in effect for Hawaii after being in a watch and or warning, excuse me, throughout late last night into early this morning. But of course, we're also tracking out what's in store for us back here at home if you live in the valleys and even along those foothills heading into the next couple of days.